two amazing Sebastian Stan performances in two different films that he got nominated for at different award shows for Best Actor. Let's talk about A Different Man and The Apprentice. Hey guys, Dan here. This is Dan Reviews It. Welcome to my movie reviews for A Different Man and The Apprentice. Sebastian Stan came out with both of these movies in late 2024, and the Golden Globes decided to highlight his performance in A Different Man, in which he won, by the way, Best Actor in a musical or comedy, and this one is more of the dark comedy, not a musical. And then the Oscars went with The Apprentice for Best Actor. He didn't win that one. That went to Adrian Brody, but he was nominated for that film. And actually, both movies got Oscar nominated because A Different Man got nominated in the category of makeup and hairstyling. So both of these movies got Oscar nominated, but he won for the Golden Globe for A Different Man. So look, we'll talk about both of these here momentarily. First, though, let me welcome you back to the channel. If you are new to Dan Reviews It, please consider subscribing down below and click that notification bell. There are a ton of videos on the channel, and I try to post just about every day. Or you can just like this video or comment below. If you are a returning subscriber, thank you so much for that. Always love having you guys check out my videos and come back to the channel. So both of these, like I said, have been out a few months. It came out late 2024 in time for award season. So I figured we'll just lump them in together because Sebastian Stan's amazing performance is certainly a key part to both of these movies being successes. So we'll start with A Different Man. This one is available on Max. The Apprentice, unavailable for streaming. You will have to plunk down a few bucks to rent that from one of your video rental sites, Amazon or iTunes or whatever. There's so many of them, Fandango. But A Different Man, if you have Max, you can check this one out for free. This was written and directed by Aaron Schimberg, and he is a person I was completely unfamiliar with. He has done 3 movies. This is his third one, A Different Man, and I had never even heard of the other 2, so certainly this is his highest profile one. Sebastian Stan not only won the Golden Globe for this, for Best Actor, but also when it premiered at the Berlin International Film Festival. Well, I guess it had its premiere at Sundance, but after that was the Berlin Festival, and he won the Silver Bear for Best Leading Performance. So obviously a lot of accolades for his performance in this film. And he plays Edward, who is an aspiring actor with neurofibromatosis, which is, I'm not sure if it's exactly what Rocky Dennis had, the Elephant Man, as he was known, but it's something similar. If you've not seen promotional items for this movie or Sebastian Stan going on some of the talk shows with the other actor I'm going to mention, Adam Pearson, but yes, it is that sort of facial structure, and so he learns about this experimental procedure that, if it works, would change his face, and make him look more, quote unquote normal, more chiseled. Sebastian Stan, obviously a very good looking dude. And so he decides to undergo this treatment, and it works. But unfortunately, he learns that his past insecurities come out in droves, and also a lot of new issues rear their heads too. So he has a neighbor who just moved in the building, who is an aspiring playwright, Ingrid, played by Renate Renisve. I've never known how to pronounce her name, but she was the most, what was the movie, most horrible person in the world? What was it called? The Worst Person in the World, that's what it was. And she was excellent in that movie. And I apologize for butchering her name, but so you may know her from that. So she puts this play on, and it's going well. She has cast Edward in the lead role. However, Oswald, this guy played by Adam Pearson, who really in real life has this condition, comes in and sort of infiltrates Edward's new life. And I think that's all we'll talk about the premise. But so this obviously is, a star vehicle for Sebastian Stan, but there's a lot going on in this movie. And let's talk about the screenplay first, because, like I mentioned, this guy, I've never heard of him, but he wrote and directed this, Aaron Schimberg. The ideas presented here that, look, certainly we are not necessarily our appearance, and, look beyond to see the person inside and all of that. Sure, we've learned that since we were kids. Not, let's not judge a book by its cover, et cetera, et cetera. Unfortunately, in society, a lot of people do judge people that appear different, right? But what is so interesting about this script is the way that the Edward character, when we first meet him, he seems like this really shy person, and he doesn't even want to tell this neighbor that he has a crush on her because, oh, how could she like somebody like me? But after he has this transformation, he becomes a complete douche. And he's so full of himself, and he becomes so angry that this person that has the condition that he, sought to get away from is getting all of this love. And so Sebastian Stan is so incredible in this role. I would say, and we'll talk about The Apprentice in a moment, but I would say the Golden Globes, I think, got it more correct on the acting front than the Oscars did, because this is such a tightrope of a character that Stan portrays just perfectly, based on how the script treats the character. And everybody else, is good too. And certainly, the gentleman, Adam Pearson, that really does have this condition, is very great as well, and does a lot with the role. But, look, he's also lived it, right? So he's had a lot of practice in sort of, being that person. I think, probably not with getting the adoration that this character gets, unfortunately for him in real life. But I think, he's played it very, very well, and it hits, close to home for him. Whereas Sebastian Stan, I think, had to, stretch a little bit to kind of put himself in those shoes. And Adam Pearson does a great job. Absolutely, don't get me wrong. But Sebastian Stan, he is such a chameleon. And we'll definitely talk about that a little more with The Apprentice. But I think the script here is sharp. It really is in that sort of dark comedy vein where it's like slice of life. People are maybe slightly exaggerated. The events that occur are slightly exaggerated from what they would be in the real world. But the emotions present for all the characters are very real, I think. And I think, that combined with Stan's performance are certainly the biggest strengths of this movie. So I believe A Different Man with an A minus. And like I mentioned, you can stream that now on Max. So let's switch it over to The Apprentice. And if you can't tell from the title, or if you've not seen the posters, this is about Donald Trump. And in fact, this one took a while to come out because Trump was trying to have it blocked, and he was saying, oh, it's going to hamper my, chances at the election, in 2024 and all of this. And unfortunately, that didn't pan out. But look, there's a lot of things, a lot of documentaries, a lot of movies come out around election time. They're focused on, sort of negative qualities of a certain character. And this isn't even that. I think the reason this movie is so interesting is because I think it would have been very, very easy to make this a complete hatchet job, which Trump, himself thinks it is. Now, whether he actually even saw the movie, I doubt it, right? But that's a story for another time. But this really is not as much of a, slam hatchet job as it could be. I think it's probably pretty realistic to how Trump kind of came up. This is long before the TV show The Apprentice. This is taking place in the 70s and 80s. It starts in 1973 and, goes for about 15 years or so. And it's all about Trump's rise in New York as a businessman, as a financier, all of this, the Trump Towers, and his father, Fred Trump, is portrayed here by Martin Donovan. We have Maria Bakalova as Ivana, and she, of course, got accolades for playing Borat's daughter, I should say, in the second Borat film, which she was Oscar nominated for. But you have another Oscar nominee for this film as well in Jeremy Strong. He plays Roy Cohn, who was, Trump's financial advisor and lawyer and all of that. So this was directed by Ali Abbasi, who I was unfamiliar with, but you may know him, not by name probably, but he directed the last two episodes of the first season of The Last of Us, which were powerful episodes. So this guy knows how to make a movie. But he also has been Oscar nominated himself before, because he was selected for not his movie Borderlands, or what was it called? The Border, was selected as the entry for the Oscars that year. It did not get a nomination for foreign language film, but it earned a nomination for, believe it or not, makeup and hairstyling. So a lot of makeup and hairstyling in his movies, I guess. Or no, I guess A Different Man was the one. So a lot of makeup and hairstyling in this video that we're talking about. But in any event, let's get back to The Apprentice. So yeah, this takes place starting in 73 and moves into the 80s, and it really covers Trump's life with his father, his aggressions in the industry, trying to make a name for himself, trying to be the best. And yes, look, there's a few touches in here that are like obvious, like, okay, did he really say that, or are we just throwing what we know now about him? Like at one point they talk about Reagan's slogan about making America great again, and at one point he says, oh yeah, I might run for president. Like, did Trump have presidential aspirations in the 80s? I don't know. I mean, look, he obviously thinks he's the best thing to ever walk the earth, so maybe he did. But look, this movie doesn't go to some dark places that it could. Like, it's not like it shows him hanging out with Jeffrey Epstein. Like that, I think, would have been some low-hanging fruit for this movie. But Sebastian Stan really, really sinks himself into this role. And I knew his range when he was playing Tommy Lee in the Pam and Tommy Hulu series. He was excellent as Tommy Lee. And of course, audiences will know him best from, his work in the Marvel Universe as Bucky and all of that. But in these more sort of niche roles, where he's portraying real people, I mean, he was Tommy Lee, and here it's not a Donald Trump impression like you would see on a sketch show or something, SNL or whatever. He really has the mannerisms down. He's got, the voice. Obviously, we don't have as much recorded stuff, in the 80s of Donald Trump, but we do have some, right? From his business videos and maybe commercials that he did and all of that stuff. So, he takes that and really runs with that. And of course, they give him the terrible, dirty blonde wig, and it really completes the part. And he portrays it very, very well. And yes, this is a negative critique, I think, overall of Donald Trump, certainly. Is it true to who he was back then? I don't know. Certainly I wasn't there, and for some of it I wasn't even born yet. But look, it's no secret that people in New York that worked with Donald Trump hated him. He didn't pay, et cetera, et cetera. We could go on all day about that. So let's shift our focus a little bit to Jeremy Strong as Roy Cohn, because I think this is the performance of the movie. Sebastian Stan's great, don't get me wrong, but we know a lot about Donald Trump already, right? Roy Cohn is somebody I've probably heard the name before, right? But he died a long time ago. He died in the late 80s. He died of AIDS. And that is all covered here. His lifestyle is covered here. Donald Trump's disgust of his lifestyle is covered here. And I didn't watch Succession, so I am not as familiar with Jeremy Strong as a lot of you might be. I thought he just killed this role. It was so good. And his relationship with Donald is interesting because, that sort of shifts with Trump's rise, I guess you could say, in that time period. And so, he starts out really advising him and saying, like, oh, I think you should do this, or maybe that's a bad idea. And Trump, is going to do what he wants anyway. Some of his ideas, work out, some of them don't. But this movie really does explain how the two of them kind of made Trump, a true mogul in the 80s. And Strong's performance is just wonderful here. I can see why he got Oscar nominated. And I think, honestly, if Macaulay Culkin, if Kieran Culkin didn't win for Best Supporting Actor, Strong would have been one of the other great choices, I think, in that category. I strongly recommend the Kieran Culkin movie, A Real Pain, as well. That's the movie he won for. But Strong is really great here, and it's interesting that they were both on Succession together, and of course got a lot of accolades from that show. But this movie, on the whole, is not as good as A Different Man. I think partially because, look, a lot of us know enough about the story that there's maybe not a ton of new information here. Him sort of going against his father and whatever. But it is interesting to sort of look at, and I don't agree. Again, I don't think Trump probably watched it, but I don't agree with him saying, "Oh, it's a hatchet job" and this and that. I think the 80s was, a drug fueled time and all of this, and New York City specifically was crazy in the 80s. I get the sense that this is pretty realistic, to what was going on. But a great performance, a great couple of performances, really, in that one. So I will leave The Apprentice with a B. So a couple of films to check out, both nominated for several awards, and Sebastian Stan winning Best Actor for A Different Man. I think that's the better picture. But you can check that out on Max, and you can download The Apprentice for rental at this point as well. All right, thank you so much for watching Dan Reviews It, and I'll see you next time.